So I named the winery after my grandfather. My grandfather was a Portuguese immigrant from the island of Madeira, and his name was BoaVentura de Caires. And BoaVentura in Portuguese roughly translates to good venture. So he died when I was about 19 years old, and I've used his name for my corporation and the winery because I enjoyed drinking wine as a child with them in Oakland. Every time you'd go to my grandparents, they always had a little glass of wine, milk, and maybe some brandy or port. And just always had wine since I was a child. It came with every meal whenever you were there visiting, and enjoyed it. It was always Gallo wine, big jugs, or Taylor, big jugs. And then my grandfather would cut those in half and use them as mini terrariums because he was a master gardener. So they were all over his backyard. So I always enjoyed wine from when I was a child. And then I really got into food and wine during college, cooking and waiting tables, and became good friends with the Wente family, and actually opened their restaurant in 1986, and really found my passion for wine and food at that time, and something I kind of stuck with. In BoaVentura, we opened to the public in 2005, but I started it basically in 1999. I bought an abandoned goat farm and ranch, and then in 2000, I planted 5,000 vines. My 35th birthday in 2000, I planted my 5,000th vine. It's a lot of vines, a lot of drip tube, a lot of irrigation. I did a lot of time. Like I said, I'm good friends with the Wente family, and I was fortunate enough they would let me go out and work with their vineyard crews that were installing vineyards. So I would go out and learn how to put the pipe in for the vineyards, how to tie wire, how to do drip tubes, how to lay out stuff, and that's what I did. It was the hard way to learn, but I know everything, and I do everything here, from literally pot washer, putting up wires, picking grapes, to making wine and selling it in the tasting room. It has. I mean, we only produce one white wine, and we make an Alvarinho, and we spell it with the V instead of a B, and we make it in the Vinho Verde style of Portugal, so dry, crisp, stainless steel, and slightly effervescent. And it's a wine that I love. It's a funny story because when I started to do that wine, everybody wanted Chardonnay, and they wanted oaky and buttery and rich, and I wanted clean and crisp and slightly effervescent. And I finally found the grapes. They were basically almost given to me at that point. Nobody was making any Albarino or Alvarinho at the time much, and now it's become quite popular, and now I have a hell of a time getting the grapes. So I probably pay 4 or 5 times as much as what I used to pay for them. So we have a little over 3.5 acres here on the property that we farm, and we have about 6,000 vines total, about 5,000 cab vines, and about another 1,000 grapes of, we have a little bit of Petite Syrah, we have Tinta Cow, Trigo Nacional, Sauza, Tinta Amaria, and a little bit of orange muscat that we play with. And so we make our own port from those traditional port grapes that we use. And then we also farm another vineyard just to the east of us, which is about another 1.5 acres. And then in the past, we've also farmed a Petite Syrah vineyard on the corner and a Syrah vineyard down on the south end of town. We can see all the other grapes that we buy. So like if I buy Petite Syrah, I can see it's at Julio Carruvas's vineyard, or we just bought some Malbec across the street a year or two ago, as well as some Syrah. So we walk over there and run through those vineyards with our dogs quite a bit. So we always see what's going on. So everything's within eyesight except our Alvarinho, and we get that from Andros Island up in the Delta, about 5 miles east of Isleton, on a little island below sea level. We do everything. We grow it, we process it, we bottle it. We have our own little bottling line. I'll be bottling all this week. I got 3 wines to bottle this week. So we're completely self-contained. Yes, that would be my great-grandfather Antonio. And on his passport, we took the liberty of putting his passport photo on here. And then we had deported stamped across it. We had a 2-year fight with the TTB because they knew we were playing on the name Port, which is trademarked through the EU and all that. But we finally were able to win and prove that he was deported during Prohibition, and we have it on there. So family history, my aunt said and my grandfather said that he was making illegal wines in Oakland, probably just making a half barrel in his backyard or something. But at the time, I don't think he had any residency. I know my grandfather didn't, and my grandfather ended up being quite angry with my great-grandfather because at that time, when my great-grandfather would get arrested, they would take my grandfather as an unaccompanied minor into jail with him.
Oh, fun.
So he didn't like that. My dad said that he remembers a conversation, I think it's probably in the early 50s, and he said there was a phone call my grandfather breaks into Portuguese, and it's kind of, rah, 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 you know, and then it's like, ah, your grandfather died, you know, and it was kind of, my dad said my grandfather was kind of like, oh, it was kind of good riddance to him because he wasn't happy because it had jeopardized him getting his citizenship so many times. So my great-grandfather never got back in the country, and my grandfather was naturalized in 1933. I'm born and raised in the Bay Area. I was born up in Angwin, just above St. Helena. My parents were living up there in the time in the mid-60s, and apparently I was arriving a little faster than my dad could make it to Napa, and so they drove up the hill as fast as they could to the Seventh-day Adventist Hospital, and I'm born in Sanitarium, California, which was always a funny thing because all my baseball, you know, certificates or whatever, you know, you got to show them where your birth certificate or whatever, and it says Sanitarium, California, so everyone thinks I was born in a sanitarium, but it's a Seventh-day Adventist hospital, not a loony bin. I think so. I mean, we're not following the normal path. We're following what we wanted to kind of do. I think, you know, I don't think for the ones that got to choose it for yourselves, I think it's something different. It's not going to be easy. You know, it's not all that glorious. Everybody, my friends, they're like, God, you're in the vineyard again. You're on the tractor again. You're working till when? I'm like, hey, you know, things got to be pumped, things got to be made, things got to be sprayed. You know, you got to do it. You can't afford to pay everybody to do it. I didn't start with a big fortune and trying to make a small fortune, so we do it ourselves. My wife and kids were pretty cranky last week because they had to put up wires in the vineyard because I was going to spray, and wires weren't all up. So we spent 3 or 4 days putting wires up in the vineyards. You know, all three of them seem to, they have their moments. My son Venture, he likes doing punch downs, and when I'm out there, you know, checking all the numbers on the fermentations, and he enjoys that. And he enjoys the tasting room part of it. And then the girls definitely seem to like the tasting room. My oldest is in here all the time. My 11-year-old we have to kick out all the time because she wants to take over, and she'll take over the tasting room staff, and she's quite bossy. And she knows her wines, and she's, you know, well, I'm going to pour you the Alvarinho, and then we're going to have this Cabernet from that vineyard and this Cabernet from that vineyard, and maybe you'd like the Malbec or something a little softer, you know. So she's pretty funny, but I think she's going to be an attorney. You know, I haven't had that personal experience. I haven't had anything that's really, that I found that much different than other grapes, you know, other than textural stuff. You know, Cabernet grapes are really nice and small and thick-skinned, and they don't explode in the press. Syrah, I end up with a lot of grape skins on the top of my head. Fountains of them will shoot out the side of the press when the pressure gets really good there. Their skins are thinner, and they're slippery, and they will, you know, you get about, you know, 3,000 PSI in there, and all of a sudden you hear this, and up it goes, and down it comes, and it's all over your head. You know, I would say that I think that it's an opportunity just generally that you're going to be able to meet winemakers firsthand and get them probably more in their native environment versus, you know, they're looking all super suave in a restaurant and giving some big, you know, blah, 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 making up a lot of big words and trying to, you know, sound super important. Most of the people out here pretty much are doing it. They're making it, they're doing it, they're working in it. You know, they might not be farming it, but they're making it, they're doing it. They're running their tasting room, they're doing all their stuff. So you catch them in their native environment, and I think that's kind of a cool opportunity, you know, and I think most of the people are very impassioned about what they do, because most of the people out here are winemakers really by choice. You know, there's not that many, you know, 5th generation winemakers. There's only, I don't know, I think we've only got, you know, one multiple family, you know, facility going. Everybody's kind of just something they chose, you know, and there's a lot of real smart winemakers here that are lab type of people, and because we have the Defense Department, the Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory, Sandia National Laboratory, and a lot of these people came in and they had a passion for wine, you know, because they might have lived overseas or something, and they came in and started their own stuff. So they're pretty brilliant people. Our website is BoaVenturaVineyards.com, I believe. I don't do that part. My wife does that part, so I'm not 100% sure. But if you look up BoaVentura Vineyards, it'll come up. But I think it's BoaVenturaVineyards.com.